This week, I take two almost identical business class flights that have just one big difference. One's in Europe and the other one's in America, as I set out on a mission to answer once and for all, which continent has the best business class?
Welcome to sunny Orlando in Florida, home of course to Mickey Mouse and also lots of Europeans coming on holiday over here to Florida. And you know what, I was thinking the other day, I fly quite a lot in the US and over in Europe as well, and things are pretty different from one side to the other. And one thing that really is different, regardless of what side of the pond you're on, is when you're flying in business class on a short haul flight. Very, very different over there to over here. So I thought, why not make a little video and we'll talk about some of the differences, and we'll take a flight today over here and then we'll go over to Europe and do a similar sort of flight over there. So let's head into the terminal and take our first flight of the day. And so for my domestic US flight, I'm taking a ride on United Airlines, and actually the European one I'm going to do on one of their partner airlines over in Europe as well, Lufthansa. Both flights are going to be about 2 hours, 2.5 hours long. Both flights on an Airbus A321. Let's see what the difference is. The first thing actually when we get airside here into Orlando that we found, and this is something that, it's gone very dark, hasn't it? This is something that I found when I first moved over here that was a little bit different, is that, well, for a start, business class isn't called business class domestically, it's called first class, which is a bit weird because it's not really first class either. But aside from whatever we're actually calling it in the first place, the first thing that I noticed when I moved over here was that there's no lounge access when you fly domestically in the first class, which is weird. Everywhere else in the world, pretty much you buy a business class ticket, you always get lounge access, but not here. Well, not by default anyway. And there's a whole range of factors that go into whether you get lounge access. You can do it through credit cards and things like that. You can have a credit card that gets you access. If you're on an international business class ticket and you're just connecting with a first class, well then you get it. If you're Star Alliance Gold, you get it, but if you're a United Gold, you don't. It's very complicated, but the upshot is that most of the time you end up going straight to the gate, which is where we are now for our ride across to Chicago.
And so it was time to board flight number 1. With United First Class, it gets you boarding in Group 1, but before Group 1, there's 5 other groups you get to board first, so don't bank on being the first on board. Once you get on board though, it's pretty nice. My ride today is United's A321neo, which has first class in this fancy 2.2 config, every seat featuring a huge TV. There's USB and USB-C charging as well, and you can connect your own device to the TVs too. Pretty soon though, we were pushing back from the gate to get on our way for today's flight. Right there, welcome on board United Airlines Airbus A321neo. This is the newest airplane in United's fleet. They've got about 15 of them at the moment, and they're pretty nice. What is standard across pretty much every first class product that you get here in the States is that it's in a 2.2 configuration with these lovely big reclining chairs, the state of which can vary from one airplane to another. The flight that I was on just this morning over to Orlando, for example, had quite old battered seats, and it hasn't been updated yet to like a new seat or anything, but they're working on getting through them and updating them. This seat reclines quite a long way. We've got a massive TV screen here. A lot of the time with these big TV screens as well, they have Bluetooth functionality, so you can connect your own headphones to them, which is pretty cool. You can charge your devices and plug those into there as well through the different USB options that you have. And there's power outlets at every seat as well, which is also pretty cool. Taking about a 2-hour run today on United, which is pretty similar to the 2 hours that I'm going to be doing on the next flight later on in the video. But for now, Let's see what else we get here in first class on United on a domestic flight. Not long after takeoff, the crew came round with hot towels followed by a bowl of warm nuts and a drink. You usually get a pre-takeoff drink too of either water or a mimosa on United too, but for some reason we didn't get that offered to us today. What we did get though was the in-flight meal, which you can either choose before the flight on their website or order on board. I'd pre-ordered the fish today, which was actually really nice. The American carriers all offer Wi-Fi on their flights too. Now, I'm always getting asked very similar questions whenever I do videos flying around the world making this content for YouTube. And the biggest question I get asked is, who do I use for my mobile roaming data while I'm traveling abroad? Because it can be super duper expensive to be connecting to networks all around the world. In some of the random countries I get to as well, it can be quite an issue. Now, I'm quite lucky. My mobile plan that I have does include some roaming data, but it only includes a little bit of roaming data. For a start, you only get a certain amount of data, so you can't use your phone like you would normally here in the US. But in addition to that, it only works in a handful of countries, and most of the places I go, well, there's no roaming data available with the plan that I have. That is where Airalo comes in. You see, I've been using Airalo for quite some time now, and it's basically an app that you install on your phone, and it installs an eSIM on your device. And what that does is mean that when you go to any country around the world, you can connect to a local mobile data network over there and have access to the internet straight away. It's a lot like when you used to go and buy a SIM card when you travelled abroad and lined up and picked up your SIM card and put it in your phone and hoped it would connect, except you can do it all before you go. It costs a fraction of the price and it's just installed on your phone, so you can still keep your existing SIM for your phone calls and things like that. Airalo is super easy to use as well. You just install the app on your phone. I'll pop a link up here on a QR code for you to click on and download it to your device, sign up, and then you can buy eSIMs for any country around the world that they've got listed there within the app. It's really easy. Once you've done that, you just install the eSIM on your phone, and then as soon as you step off the plane, wherever you go, you're connected to the internet straight away, ready to go. I particularly like Airalo for travelling to countries across Africa, because Africa, for a start, roaming data plans from other countries don't tend to work in a lot of those countries, and even if they do, you end up with like GPRS data that's basically unusable to do anything except send text messages with. So Airalo's really good for those countries, because you can just go and you can connect straight to the high speed networks that they've got. A lot of the time over there I'll get 4G instead, maybe even 5G in some of the big cities as well, and it just makes it so much easier having that eSIM on there. At the moment, Airalo are giving you $3 off when you use my promo code. You could scan the QR code up here, you could click on the link down there, or you could just type the link directly in your browser if that's what you'd rather do. But if you use my promo code, you'll get $3 off when you set up Airalo, which is a good deal in itself. After what felt like no time at all, we were starting our approach down into Chicago's O'Hare Airport. Now, one thing that can vary, of course, is the type of aircraft you fly on. While all narrow bodies in the States do have similar seats in varying states of repair, it's worth pointing out that a lot of domestic flights in the US are operated by anything from regional jets to wide bodies, depending on the route. So there's a chance your 2-hour flight could be operated by a regional jet with just a cold sandwich being served, or could feature flatbeds on a 777 or a 787.
Right, welcome to Chicago. That is what it's like to fly first class / business class here, domestic in the States, with United. But now, we need to see how the Europeans do it. So let's head across to Frankfurt in Germany, home of course to Lufthansa. After all, it would only be fair to compare an American carrier with the very best that Europe has to offer. An airline that's a 5-star airline. Okay, a 4-star airline. They had one removed because they weren't quite as good as they told everybody. But anyway, we're flying on Lufthansa today. So first things first, here in Europe, when you fly in business class, you usually get access to like fast track security and stuff like that, which is always helpful. In the States, you have to use either the Clear program or TSA pre-check to get you through a bit quicker. It's not actually something you get with the airline. And you know, that's not the only thing that's different over here, because over here as well, we get to go in the lounge. Hey. Thank you. Now, granted, the lounges aren't always that great, and they can be really busy too, but they do at least let you get a bite to eat before you get on the plane. But you see, some airlines are starting to even remove things like that now here in Europe. Some airlines are starting to introduce so-called business class light fares, which removes the lounge access, removes the priority access to the queues and things like that. Which begs the question, if you're not getting that whole ground experience, then surely you've got to at least get a better experience when you get on the plane. Right? Hi there.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello, bye bye.
Yeah, about that. You see, this is European business class, also called Euro J, J being the booking code for business class flights, and it's basically a standard economy seat with the middle seat empty. That's it. On Lufthansa they call it your space in the middle, which isn't really your space, and unless you've got a particularly wide bottom. Otherwise, this is it. There's your legroom that you're working with. As you can see, there's no sort of in-flight entertainment or anything like that. No Wi-Fi on most flights either in Europe. So, yeah. This is the European business class experience.
It wasn't long before we were pushing back from the gate to get on our way for our flight across Europe.
One thing you won't find on European business class flights, for the most part, like inter-European flights in general, really, I guess, is any in-flight entertainment. There's nothing at all in the backs of the seats. Most of the time, even if there is Wi-Fi, which is pretty few and far between on most airlines, but even if there is Wi-Fi, they don't tend to have any sort of entertainment options on there at all. Whereas at least in the States, you normally get a TV screen. If not, the very minimum that you'd get is Wi-Fi on your personal device with movies and stuff on there, and you don't get anything like that over here in Europe.
Now, like on United, you get served a drink and a snack after takeoff, but it's just a packet of nuts rather than heated ones in a bowl. After that, the meal service starts and Lufthansa hand out their menus for you to choose. I ordered the asparagus with veal for my meal today, and pretty soon they started to bring it out. First things first was the salmon starter, which I have to say was presented really nicely compared to United's that was all on one tray. Shortly after that was finished, the main course turned up, which did actually taste really nice.
That was really nice. I definitely feel that the food on this flight was presented a lot nicer than what you get on flights in America. It looked really fancy, and it tasted really nice as well. You just don't get as much of it, and it's not like a full hearty meal like you get on flights in the States. Now, that could just be down to differences in types of cuisine. European cuisine is a bit more fancy and bitty-bobby, isn't it, than meals that you get in the States. So maybe I'll take that into account as well, but I have to say I do definitely prefer the option to have a nice plate of enchiladas or something, or a spag bowl, or a burger, or even a burger or something like that on the flights in the States than slender cooked veal cooked braised in pork juices or whatever it is that you get on the European ads. I'm not that much of a fancy person, I have to say. It was nice anyway.
With no in-flight entertainment or even Wi-Fi available on this flight, it did drag on a bit more than United's flight did, even though it was pretty much the same length. If you fly business class in Europe, it might be worth bringing a good book with you, or at least downloading some Netflix. Now, I do have to say, as approaches into European airports go, you can't really get much better than Lisbon. Whether it's day or night, it's always an absolutely fantastic view out the window. Now then, we need to address the final and probably most important comparison of this video, and that is the amount it costs for both of my flights. For United, my flight from Orlando to Chicago was 1,008 miles and cost me $481, working out at a cost per mile of 48 cents. For Lufthansa, my flight from Frankfurt to Lisbon was 1,164 miles and cost me €474 or $513, working out at a cost per mile of 44 cents. So the cost difference isn't that great. You pay pretty much the same for Lufthansa's business class as you do for United, but the question is, for the same amount of money, which would you rather fly? Let me know down in the comments. And don't forget, you can book me for a cameo video message too now, just use the link on the screen. And one thing that you do have to deal with flying into Europe is that a lot of flights don't have air bridges to the terminal. So regardless of whether you're in economy or business class, you'll get chucked down the stairs and onto a bus into the terminal.
Alright then, here we are in Lisbon, Portugal. I really hope that video helped to show you some of the differences between flying business class in Europe and business class in the States. I know which one I prefer. I'm always a fan of American first class or business class. It's actually business, you know what I mean. But let me know what you prefer down in the comments. Would you rather have the American experience like we get back in the States, or would you rather have the European experience over here for some reason? Let me know why down in the comments. But anyway, in the meantime, as always, thank you so much for watching. Take care, be kind to one another, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.